Alright, so for 419, it's asking you to calculate the correlation between three sets of numbers. So the data is in this file, exercise 419, and we're going to load that into StatCrunch. So again, just like before, you click Open StatCrunch, and you're going to load a data set from a web address, and you paste in the web address of the data file, and go ahead and click Load. And you can see that in your book there's three tables. In each there's a table for part A, for part B, and for part C. And you can see the data for part A right here, the table for part B is right here, and the table for part C is right there. And we want to find the correlation for between each pair. So we want to find the correlation between cost and miles. Then we want to find the correlation between cost 1 and kilometers. And we also want to find the correlation between cost 2 and miles 1. Okay? So in each of these cases, all they've done is they've modified the numbers a little bit, and they want to know what is the effect that this is going to have. So to calculate statistics, we're going to just go to Summary Stats and do Correlation. And we first want to calculate the correlation between cost and miles, the first two columns. And we don't need any of this stuff, so we just go ahead and click Calculate. And here it says the correlation between cost and miles is 0.9868025. So we can copy this and put this into some sort of text document or Word document. Okay, so this is the correlation between cost and miles, and we want to be able to do this for close that and do it for the other ones. So here we see that there is quite a strong correlation. The correlation is being 0.986. Very strong correlation between the cost of a flight and the distance that of the flight. Okay, so in general, flights that are longer cost more than flights that are shorter, and we can actually see the graph if we wanted to. Where is scatter plot? We want to create a scatter plot for if we're going to use okay, we want to predict cost based on miles. So miles is going to be our distance, miles is going to be our predictor x, and cost is going to be our response. Leave everything with the defaults, and then click Create Graph, and we can see the dots, and we can see that indeed a straight line seems to be a good explanation for this, that flights with longer miles will cost more. Okay. Now what would happen to the correlation between cost and kilometers? If instead of miles we've recorded the distance of the flight in kilometers, what would happen there? So we can do Summary Stats, Correlation, and this time we're going to look at cost and kilometers. And the cost numbers are exactly the same. The kilometers are all larger because each mile is about 1.6 kilometers. Okay, and so here we can calculate the correlation, and we see that the correlation here is actually exactly, almost exactly the same. It is actually, it should be exactly the same. There's only a slight difference because of rounding in calculating the kilometers from the miles. They're not all exactly the same, but up to 3 decimal places, they're exactly the same. And you can check the graph and create a graph, and you'll see the same results. If we did the last thing, calculating correlation between cost 2. So what in the for part C, it says rather than the cost, the Federal Aviation Administration has added $50 to the costs of the flights. So the mileage is exactly the same, but the costs have all increased by $50. So is that going to affect our correlation? Okay, is that going to affect how strong the relationship is between the cost and the mileage? And we can click Calculate, and we see that no, it doesn't affect the correlation. It's exactly the same. So under each of these, I want you to write a short sentence. And so, for example, you could write something like the correlation between cost and miles is 0.9868. Okay, this is very strong, which means that the cost of a flight can be predicted very accurately based on the mileage of the flight. Okay, and the next sentence, okay, we see that even though we have changed the unit to measure the distance of the flight to kilometers, it does not affect the correlation. The correlation is still 0.9869, and you can go on and explain the rest of these things. But please be sure you include a sentence or something to explain what it is that these correlation values mean. Okay, it's not just enough to calculate the correlation and leave it at that.